Many years ago, in the city of Abuja, there lived a young man named Tunde. He was a very good-looking man with a strong body, deep voice, and a face that made him stand out among other men. Tunde was not just good-looking. He was rich, very rich. He had many houses around the country and a garage full of fancy cars, with more cars than even a car shop. Tunde lived in a big house that had so many rooms that if he slept in one room every night, he would still have extra rooms by the end of 1 year. He owned hotels, clubs, shopping malls in every part of the state. Tunde was so rich that people said he used money like paper after using the toilet. But even with all his money, Tunde never liked to mix with other young men or go to parties. He liked to be alone and he loved his space. He never let anyone get too close, not even the people who worked for him. Tunde lived alone in his big house with a very tall fence, as tall as a big tree, all by himself. The workers were never allowed to stay the night at his house, no matter what. They would come in around 8 a.m. in the morning, and by 6 p.m. sharp, they were all gone, leaving Tunde alone with his dark secrets. Secrets that could make a grown man fall down in fear. Secrets that could make a child sick. And that secret was hidden behind a certain door, inside a certain dark room in his house. Tunde was very popular among the ladies in Abuja and nearby towns. They all threw themselves at him, trying to become his wife, but Tunde never took any of them seriously. He dated a few, but it never lasted more than a few months. Tunde went after a certain type of girls. They were young girls from poor families in small villages far from Abuja. When the time came for Tunde to get married, he didn't marry any girl from Abuja. He went to a very far small village in Kaduna to get a wife. And when he got to the village, he went after a girl whose name was Amaka. Amaka was a 21-year-old girl who had just finished her secondary school education. She was the first child of 5 children. Her parents were poor farmers who worked hard daily to put food on the table. Tunde approached Amaka and her family and told them he wanted to marry her. He gave them lots of money, built a nice house in the village for Amaka's parents, and set up her father with a big business. He gave them wealth they had never seen before. And that was how Amaka was given to Tunde in marriage. Not many questions asked. Not much talk. Money talks, nonsense stops. Tunde paid Amaka's bride price, and the wedding was the talk of the village. The villagers were jealous of Amaka for getting a rich man who changed their lives overnight. After the wedding, Tunde brought his young, innocent wife to his big house in the city and gave her the best of everything. From clothes to jewelry, he treated her like a queen. After a few months, Amaka got pregnant, and she happily told her husband the big news. They both were happy. They both celebrated, but their joy turned into sadness shortly after. Amaka strangely died in a strange way. She slept one night and never woke up the next morning with her pregnancy. Tunde told her parents, and they all cried and felt sad for their loss. Oh, what a young girl, still in her prime, her dreams and future gone like the wind. Amaka's parents cried a lot. Tunde shed some tears too, but what has happened has happened. He told Amaka's parents that he wanted to bury his dead wife at the back of his house, and they allowed him since he was her husband. No questions asked, nothing. Tunde buried his dead pregnant wife. Or so everybody thought, and just like that, life went on. Amaka forgotten. 1 year later, Tunde decided to marry again. This time he went to a small village in Benue and went after a very beautiful girl named Ifeoma. Ifeoma was a 19-year-old girl, very smart, with long hair and bright eyes full of hope for the future. Ifeoma was an orphan who lived with her uncle and his family. She was very hardworking and decent. Every day after school, she would go to the junction to sell water to help her family. That was where Tunde saw her, like a hunter looking at his next catch. He approached Ifeoma's uncle, gave them money and gifts, and asked to marry Ifeoma. Ifeoma never wanted to get married. She had dreams of going to the university and becoming a lawyer someday, but dreams don't pay school fees, money does. Tunde promised to see her through school. He promised heaven and earth. And the pressure from Ifoma's uncle, who was blinded by wealth, didn't make things any easier for her. Finally, she agreed to marry Tunde, and just like with Amaka, Tunde built a big house for Ifoma's uncle and set up the family, and they had the biggest wedding that shocked the entire village to its core. After the wedding, Tunde took his wife in his car to the city, and as they left, Ifoma waved her uncle and cousins goodbye, promising to keep in touch. But what they didn't know was that would be the last time they would ever see Ifoma. When Ifoma arrived at Tunde's big house, it felt like heaven on earth for her. She had workers at her call. She ate whatever she wanted. Tunde gave her a driver to take her anywhere she wanted. She wore the best clothes that famous people wore in movies. Her life was like a fairy tale. Tunde was the best husband she could have ever asked for, and Ifema was happy. She went down on her knees, thanking God every day for a husband like Tunde. Tunde kept his promise to see her through school. He helped her enroll, and she entered the university to study law. Everything was perfect. Life was perfect until she got pregnant, and bad luck struck again. Just like with Amaka, Ifoma slept one night and never woke up. Her life and the life growing inside her was strangely cut short. Her dreams ended. After Ifoma's death, Tunde cried. Ifoma's family cried. Everybody felt sad for the young girl whose life was cut short by death. After a few days, Tunde asked to bury Ifyoma's body in his house, and just like that, Ifyoma's uncle allowed him. No questions asked, no drama, no doubts, just silence. In a few months, the world moved on and forgot about Ifoma. Exactly 1 year later, Tunde married again, this time to a beautiful Muslim girl from Kano. Her name was Fatima. Fatima met the same cruel fate as the other 2 young girls Tunde married before her. That was also the case with Ifoma, a 20-year-old girl from Abia State, and Blessing. All the young girls died strangely a few months after marrying Tunde. In 5 years, these girls had lost their lives with their pregnancies in Tunde's house, and nobody thought anything was wrong. The families of the young girls never asked questions. They just went back to their homes to feel sad about their death. One Saturday, Tunde went to a wedding in Lagos. There, his eyes landed on a young, beautiful girl with a full body. She couldn't have been more than 22 years old. Immediately, Tunde laid his eyes on her. He had already started making plans to marry her. The girl's name was Folake Adeyemi, popularly called Fola. Fola was a French graduate from the University of Lagos. She was learning how to do makeup before going for her National Youth Service Corps. That weekend, her teacher was hired to do makeup for a bride, and Fola followed her teacher. After they had finished styling the bride, they were given a table in the nice wedding hall and given good food, thanks to her teacher being the bridal makeup artist. That day, Fola ate the plate of food the server gave her, eating happily without a care in the world. She had not eaten all day, and it was not every day you see foreign food like Chinese rice and seafood to eat. This was a good chance, and Fola took it. As she was eating her food, she felt someone staring at her. It was not a bad stare. It was that kind of stare a man gives to a woman he likes. Fola looked up, and her eyes met a good-looking man dressed richly in white clothes. The man was tall, with a fit body that was visible under his clothes, and his smile, holy smile, was very nice. Fola quickly turned her eyes away from the man, a bit shy, and continued eating her food. But this time, she was no longer eating like a hungry lion. She now ate more nicely, since there was someone watching her now. All through the event, Fola noticed the man's eyes following her everywhere. She looked his way a few times, and each time their eyes met, her heart would jump. There was something about this man. She was curious. By the end of the event, the man walked up to Fola and introduced himself. "Hi, my name is Tunde. I couldn't help but stare at you all through the event." "Wow, you are beautiful," he said, and Fola blushed very hard. She was hooked. That was how Fola and Tunde started talking. They went out on a few dates and they started dating. Tunde was a dream come true for Fola. He was good-looking, gentle, and rich. He was open like an open book. He told Fola he had been married before, that his former wife died during a pregnancy problem. Fola was touched by his honesty, and she fell in love with him even more. But there was one thing that made Fola decide that he was the only one for her. He never asked for sex. Unlike the last guy Fola dated, who wanted to be close and get into bed with her, Tunde was different. He never made moves on her. He never touched her in private places. They never even kissed. All they did was hold hands, and when she asked why, he said he was saving himself for their wedding night. This kind of man still exist? This one, a full package. Fola couldn't believe that she caught such a good man. She couldn't stop talking about Tunde to her friends, family, and even church members. Tunde visited Fola in her small house in Lagos many times, and each time he came he gave gifts, wrappers, and money to Fola's parents and siblings. He was humble and respectful, and before you know it, he won the hearts of Fola's family, and after a few months, Fola and Tunde got married. Tunde bought a house for Fola's parents. He bought cars for them and made Mama Fola's rice business bigger, just like he did for his other 6 late wives. Tunde took Fola to his big house in Abuja, and she couldn't believe that she was that lucky to be living in such a palace. There were house workers who did everything in the house, a driver who drove her around town. Fola never had to lift a finger to do anything. She was treated like a princess, and Tunde was sweeter than sugar. He was always very caring to her. He never raised his voice when talking to her. He gave her luxury, but after a few months, Fola started to notice some strange things. He never let her visit her parents in Lagos, and her parents were not allowed to come and visit too. When she asked why, he said he wanted his space, that they just got married and it wasn't time to start having visitors. Fola also noticed that his parents or friends never visited. They lived alone in the big house. Even the workers were not allowed to spend the night. Once it was 6 p.m. sharp, the house would almost be like a graveyard. Or maybe it was a graveyard, with a scary silence and darkness she couldn't explain. What really worried her was how Tunde would disappear most nights into a certain room in the house and stay there for hours, leaving her alone in their bedroom. Fear started creeping into Fola's mind, but she kept telling herself that nothing was wrong. Months passed, and Tunde started pushing Fola to get pregnant. It was gentle at first. They just talked about it, and Tunde was still the sweet man she married. But after 1 year of marriage and she was unable to get pregnant, she started seeing another side of Tunde that she had never imagined. He was no longer gentle or sweet to her. He started threatening her to get pregnant or he would end their marriage. Fola became worried. She had tried everything she could, but nothing was happening. She had drunk all the herbs her mother sent her to get pregnant, but nothing worked. One day, she visited a hospital in Abuja for a checkup. The doctor ran many tests on her, and when the results came in, she was told her body was healthy to carry children. The doctor told Fola to tell her husband to come in for checkup as well. That evening, when Fola told Tunde what the doctor said, he got angry. "You are the one with the problem, Fola. My late wife got pregnant after a few months of marriage. Maybe you just can't have babies," he said harshly. His words hurt Fola deeply. She tried to convince him to follow her to the hospital for checkup, but he refused strongly. "Fola, if by the end of this month you still don't get pregnant, then this marriage is over." "I'm running out of time," he said as he walked out. That night, Fola couldn't sleep. She cried a lot that her marriage was about to end because she couldn't have children. The next day, she called her mother and explained everything to her, and they began serious fasting and prayer for a baby to come. Fola prayed and prayed so she could get pregnant, not knowing she would strangely die if God decides to answer her prayers. For the next few days, Tunde changed completely. He stopped sleeping in the same bedroom with Fola. He barely spoke to her. It was like she had become a stranger in her own home. Every night, Tunde would enter his secret room and lock himself inside all through the night, doing only God knows what. Fola noticed it, but she ignored it, thinking it was probably his study where he kept important business papers. But as the days passed, she started hearing strange noise coming from the room. It was Tunde's voice, talking to who exactly, she had no idea. Fola's curiosity got the best of her, and she decided to find out what was in that room that was always locked. The next day, she asked one of the house workers, but she said they didn't know what it was, that they were never allowed to go near the door. The woman told Fola that they only started working in the house when Tunde married her and brought her home. It became clear to Fola that maybe Tunde was hiding something. She had ignored the signs for too long. Something was definitely not right, and she was determined to find out what it was. For the next few days, Fola started searching for clues, for keys that could open that particular door. Then she remembered her husband always carried a particular key with him wherever he went. He said it was the keys to his wealth. That must be the key. That day, she went online and researched how to copy keys, and she found out that she could use wax to copy keys. She went out to a shop and bought wax and other items, and she went back home, pretending like nothing ever happened. That evening, Fola snuck into the room Tunde was staying, and she quickly used the wax to get the shape of the key to copy it when Tunde was in the bathroom taking his bath. And she placed the key carefully where she picked it up from, and returned back to her room and carried on as usual. That night, Tunde went into his special room again and spent the whole night there. The next morning, Fola got up and dressed herself, and immediately Tunde left the house. She left the house too without her driver. She took a car to a keymaker's shop that she had found online the day before. That day, she had Tunde's special key copied. She was ready to uncover all his secrets. When she got home that afternoon, one man told her to just open the door when Tunde was not around and look around. But no, she was stubborn. She decided to snoop at night when Tunde was doing his thing in his room. When Tunde returned home that night, he never thought anything was wrong. They had their normal short talk, and Fola even shed a few tears to convince him she was worried about not having children while her plans were set in motion. That night, Tunde went into his secret room, and the noise started just like every night for the past couple of weeks. Fola, who was wide awake, tiptoed to the door, determined to see what was inside, even if it meant her marriage would end. When Tunde was busy doing his thing, Fola opened the door with her copied key, and in a second she burst into the room with great force, and there it was. Her spirit left her body at the sight. She was shocked. Tunde too was caught off guard, and shocked that Fola had discovered his secret. Fola stood there, still trying to understand what was going on. Her husband, Tunde, was on top of a dead pregnant woman on the bed. She counted 1, 2, 3, 6 women, pregnant women, dead, all covered with white wrapper, carefully laid on the bed. Her mouth flew open in terror when Tunde saw that his secret was out. He pulled himself together quickly and moved towards Fola. She had seen his darkest secret, so he couldn't let her live. He had to take care of her before she would open her mouth and tell everything. Tunde tried to grab Fola, but Fola dodged and she ran out of the house. He chased after her with all his might, but Fola was faster. She ran out of their house and started screaming for help. Help me, somebody help me." Her screams woke up the neighbors in the estate and caught the attention of the estate's security. They all rushed out and saw Fola running away from Tunde, shouting for help. Fola ran towards the security post and told them that her husband was after her life. "Help me, my husband wants to kill me. My husband is a ritual killer," she cried out. That day, Fola told the estate security what she saw inside Tunde's secret room. and they arrested him, and they went inside Tunde's house and saw the pregnant women laying there with their big bellies, lifeless. I have always said that this man is doing ritual. Now every year he is marrying new wives, one of the estate security said. Everybody was shocked to their bones. Tunde was evil. The neighbors called the police, and Tunde was handed to the police. They took the dead bodies from the house to the hospital for investigation, and Fola, who was shaking, packed her things and ran out of the house in terror. At the police station, Tunde sat on the chair with his hands and legs chained like a criminal. The police boss stared at him with fear in his eyes and began, "Mr. Tunde, can you explain why the bodies of 6 women were found in your house? And why were you trying to end your 7th wife's life when she discovered your secrets?" Tunde stared back at the police boss with a look that sent chills down the police boss's spine. "Officer, I don't have much time left. I will just tell you everything. That woman ruined my life. I shouldn't have married her. She was different from my other wives. She was older and smarter. I shouldn't have married her." Police boss. Polake was supposed to be the last sacrifice for me to live a long life. You see, years ago, my friends and I went to a very far village to do money rituals. We bought a chicken each and took it there. The native doctor said, "The number of corn seeds our chicken ate was the number of years we will live on earth after the ritual." My friends all got 50 years, 40 years, 60 years. But when it got to my turn, my chicken only ate 5 corn seeds, which meant I have only 5 years to enjoy all the wealth I worked for. The only solution was to sacrifice 5 pregnant women who I officially married. I have managed to sacrifice 6 women already. Folake was supposed to be the 7th, but she couldn't get pregnant, and she discovered my secrets, and now all my work has gone to nothing. The 5 years is up, and the spirit would come and collect their payments, Tunde said with a dead expression. He knew his time was up. He was a walking dead man. The entire police station was shaking to its base. Fear gripped the police officers when Tunde confessed. They never thought something like this was even possible. The police kept him in prison and contacted the family of the dead women to come and claim their children who were victims of Tunde's evil. In a few days, the news had spread like wildfire on social media, on TV, on radio, and fear gripped people when they heard the news. Tunde's parents were shocked to the bone to find out that their son was a ritual killer. Fola, who was the only one who lived, was shaking to her core when she heard Tunde's confession. She couldn't sleep. She couldn't eat. She ran back to her parents in Lagos and checked herself into their church for quick prayers. On the 7th day after Tunde was arrested, the police found him dead, just like he had said, with his stomach swollen like a pregnant woman and red liquid coming from his nose, eyes, and ears. He was gone. They buried him in a mass grave where they buried criminals. And the news of Tunde's death hit Abuja like thunder. The entire city was quiet for days. Even children did not cry. Everything stood still in fear. Parents feared for their daughters, daughters feared for their lives, and they all learned a great lesson that could never be forgotten in years and years to come. Thank you for watching. Hi, lovelies. What lessons have you learned from the story? The lesson of the story is that we should always be careful. All that glitters is not gold. When a man comes to ask for your hand in marriage, it is good to ask questions. Find out about him, know him before you say yes. When a man comes to marry your daughter, find out about him, pray about it, and know what you're getting yourself into before you even begin. The world is full of wicked people. And not be today's start, it's a way start. Share this video with your loved ones to learn a thing or two. Give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so by now. Stay safe, and until I bring another juicy and interesting story your way again, bye for now.